Greetings, everyone, and today we will investigate the case of a girl who vanished while returning home from school. Thousands of volunteers and the police searched for her, but they were unable to locate any evidence. This continued for a few days until an incredibly surprising turn of events put an end to the case, making it one of the most astonishing tales in the nation. On August 10, 1992, Midsi Sanchez was born in Vallejo, California. Her two brothers and sister lived in a big, close-knit family when she was growing up. Midsi was a happy, intelligent youngster. She loved playing with her siblings and hanging out in the great outdoors with her pals. Even as a small child, Midsi was self-reliant. Her parents let her walk to primary school with her brother unaccompanied by an adult when she first started. Their house and the school were only a short distance apart, with the most of the trip taking place on a busy road. On August 10, 2000, Midsi became 8 years old. Her family had been planning a celebration party for her, and she could not wait. For the occasion, Midsi asked her mother if she might skip school, but she declined. Because of her frustration, Midsi and her brother left their house around 7:30 in the morning. Following her classes, it was Midsi's brother's turn to wait, so they could take a stroll home together. However, her brother was unable to locate his sister after he left the school. He went home by himself, believing she had already left without him. However, it transpired that Midsi was not present. Their older sister, who happened to be at home at the time, started to worry right away. Midsi was looking forward to her birthday celebration, so it felt strange that she wasn't there. She stood by for a while. Around 4 p.m., the sister decided to phone their mother and let her know what had happened, hoping that Midsi would finally turn up. Their mother discovered that her daughter had attended every lesson when she called Midsi's school right away. After that, the mother contacted Midsi's friends and relatives, but nobody had seen her after school. Midsi's family was concerned and began looking for her. Many others joined along as well, including neighbors and family friends. They swiftly coordinated a large-scale search together. Some of them strolled the streets, while others went door to door, from the house to the school, to see if anyone had seen her. They even began producing brochures about Midsi and handing them out. When Midsi's parents failed to locate her after a thorough search, they made the decision to dial 911. The local media began covering the case the same day the police joined the search. Since similar instances had already happened in their community, the public's attention was immediately drawn to Midsi's disappearance. An unidentified perpetrator or perpetrators had been kidnapping children in Vallejo for a number of years. Less than a year before Midsi vanished, in December 1999, there had been a previous case. Living only a few miles away from Midsi's home, 7-year-old Ziana Fairchild vanished en route to school. She was never located, despite the police and FBI's best efforts. Now, authorities were concerned that the same offender might be involved when Midsi disappeared on her way home from school. The startling similarities between both incidents were evident even without any clues at that moment. But Ziana's case remained unresolved, leaving investigators with scant information. They started looking again. In her case, everyone had previously thought of a suspect, but it had no effect. The following day, Midsi's disappearance made national news as well as local headlines. Everyone was terrified that there was a kidnapper on the loose and that he would get away with it again. Midsi's family members conducted several interviews in an effort to raise awareness of the situation. Additionally, her mother begged a potential kidnapper to return her daughter securely. Though several tips were received, none of them were helpful to the authorities. But something unexpected occurred 24 hours after Midsi vanished, and that's when everything changed. A man reported to the police that he had found blood-stained rags in a dump. Experts examined the rags and found they were actually hotel bedsheets from Vallejo. The evidence was transferred to the lab, but the lab would need days to analyze the blood. While they were in the hotel, Investigators were unable to establish whether Midsi had been present. Investigators investigated the landfill and looked for any other clues, but nothing turned up. They had no choice but to wait for the outcome of the lab tests. The path of this case was abruptly altered when the police received a second call on August 12th. A tiny child approached a man's van while he was passing through a Santa Clara industrial neighborhood at approximately 11 in the morning, yelling that she was being pursued. The driver noticed a man running at them as she got inside the van's cabin. The girl screamed that he had taken her hostage and intended to murder her. The perpetrator turned back, got into his car, and drove off as soon as she was inside the van. The motorist called the police after learning the girl's name, Midsi Sanchez. She was picked up by officers right away, and they took her to a hospital to be examined. Additionally, they gave her mother a call so she could talk to her daughter. Her family members met Midsi again shortly after she was admitted to the hospital. Detectives conversed with the van driver in the interim. The man turned out to be a vital tip. He could still clearly see the kidnapper's license plate because it left the scene directly in front of his van. The van driver's presence on that road appeared to be nearly coincidental. Despite having the day off, his supervisor asked him to cover a shift and deliver a load. Had he not been there, the attacker might have managed to catch up with the girl. After analyzing the license plate, the authorities determined that the vehicle belonged to Curtis Dean Anderson, a 39-year-old male. Due to past convictions for theft, abduction, and suspicion of additional crimes, he had previously come under the attention of law enforcement. While the investigators concentrated all of their efforts on tracking down the kidnapper, their colleagues readied themselves to hear Midsi's version of events. She informed them, stated she was excited for school to end on August 10th so she could go home and celebrate her birthday with her family. Midsi chose not to wait for her brother and went home by herself after her last class. She could see a parked automobile by the side of the road only a few hundred yards distant. A man was inside, observing her closely via the rearview mirror. Although Midsi was uncomfortable with him, she dismissed it fast. It was during the day. She was on a street she knew well. She didn't realize how dangerous strangers may be. The man got out of the car as Midsi was walking up to it and asked her to help. He stated he had to get beneath the car seat to get a roll of tape. He said that he was unable to bend over himself as he had hurt his leg falling from his bike. Even though Midsi felt uneasy, she consented to assist. She had always been trained by her parents to be cautious around adults, but she was too young to really understand the threat that the adult man may offer. To assist others, Midsi lunged for the tape, but the assailant forced her inside, put his hand over her mouth, and slammed the door. It was too late for Midsi to shout. She watched in terror as the abductor drove off in an unidentified destination. They once went by Midsi's house, and she noticed her family getting ready for her birthday. The kidnapper stopped into an empty parking lot a little while later. He made Midsi change, gave her new clothes, and threw away her old clothes in a garbage can nearby. Additionally, he threatened Midsi with a gun and said that no one had ever been able to escape from him, so she should not try to flee. He drove Midsi in an unknown destination for the next few hours. She once questioned him about why he had abducted her, to which he merely replied that it had happened to him as a youngster. He parked again when it grew dark. I started using some rags to cover the car windows. Then he produced a chain, which he padlocked to Midsi's leg. The offender then produced an alcohol bottle and made her take a few sips. Midsi attempted to counter him, but in the end she complied with his request. Subsequently, the man seized a camera and captured multiple images of Midsi before collapsing into the automobile. Fearful of dozing off, Midsi made an effort to keep her eyes open. While she was planning her getaway, she briefly noticed a police vehicle drive by the parking lot. However, it was far enough away that Midsi couldn't have been heard by the authorities, even if she had screamed. The offender drove her around the city again the following day. She was forced to sit on the car's floor and he covered her with sheets to keep her out of sight. He pulled over and got out for a short while at one point. Midsi attempted, but soon gave up trying to release her leg from the chain. She also discovered a nail file and tried using it to open the padlock, but it was unsuccessful. The perpetrator claimed to have stopped by her parents' house before getting back in the car and leaving. Posing as a worried citizen, the kidnapper requested flyers to hand out around the community. Midsi was overwhelmed and shocked. She was still in captivity, even though she had been so close to home. The offender stopped multiple times during the course of the following few hours, entering and from the vehicle. He left town that evening, pulling into a desolate spot where he attacked his victim sexually. And with that, the man dozed off, leaving Midsi stunned. He took off again the following morning, stopping a few times along the way, mostly to buy beer and cigarettes. Something dropped out of his pocket once when he went back to the car and leaned into the cabin. He left again after telling Midsi not to look there. However, the girl ignored him. When she looked down, she noticed a big bundle of keys. It didn't take Midsi long to grasp that one of them needed to open the padlock on her chain. Eventually, Midsi conquered her dread of what the perpetrator would do to her if she disobeyed. Grabbing the bunch, she selected the key that appeared to fit the lock the best and tried to open it. She was surprised to see it work. Midsi untangled the chain around her neck. Right now, her only barrier to freedom was the car door. When Midsi opened the window to try to climb out, she ran into another issue. She was so tired that her legs were hardly moving. She was able to lift herself out of the car by using all of her power. She saw her kidnapper as she went around it, and he saw her right away. The man started calling out for her to return, but Midsi was determined to fight through to the very end, using every last bit of her might. She took off running the other way. The offender pursued her as Midsi attempted to signal passing vehicles for assistance. They all drove by, even though she waved and screamed. Still, Midsi continued her journey toward independence. She was certain that the culprit would find her and hurt her if she paused for even a moment. Even though everything happened so quickly, Midsi seemed as though it would never end. She eventually noticed a van, hurried in its direction, and sprang in front of it. After the driver came to a short stop, Midsi got into the cabin. She was shocked, thirsty, and starving. Yet there was no longer any threat to her life. Doctors in the hospital gave her the support she needed, and soon her whole family came to be with her. Midsi's incredible rescue quickly rose to the top of the city's press agenda. Thousands of people gathered on her street after her return. She had missed her birthday, but they cheered her on and yelled birthday wishes. In the meantime, the kidnapper's location remained a mystery as the police searched for him. Midsi's mother discovered she had seen him twice when they showed her his picture. The first time was when he stood on their street and glanced in the direction of their house, just before to her daughter being abducted. The second incident occurred the day following Midsi's abduction, when the culprit visited her house and requested flyers. Up until late in the evening, Curtis was still missing. All known locations he frequented were under police monitoring, and eventually, it paid off. When he arrived at a trailer park, he was easily captured. After Curtis was placed under arrest pending trial, police started looking into any potential links between him and other offenses. The man himself admitted to Midsi that no one had ever been able to escape him and that she wasn't his first victim. It was almost unimaginable to the investigators that this was his first offense of this nature. He appeared to have extensive expertise carrying out such atrocities based on all of his deliberate and probably premeditated actions. It's important to note that Curtis was incarcerated in 1991 for kidnapping a lady. After his release in November 1999, the police were certain that he had slain Ziana Fairchild, a 7-year-old girl, at least once, but we'll return to that in a moment. Nor was there any dispute about his intention to murder Midsi. Furthermore, one particular detail made it clear that it was intended to occur on the day of her escape. When Curtis stopped in the industrial area, The police found out why. That day, he paid a visit to his former coworkers at one of the companies where he used to work. The moment he asked for a big bag, the investigators knew he was going to dispose of a body in it. With Curtis's apprehension, Midsi took a very long time to heal. She became much more concerned, though, when she found out that the police were suspected him of kidnapping Ziana. Although Midsi was relieved that she had escaped, she was concerned about what would happen to the 7-year-old daughter. Since her disappearance more than 8 months ago, there has been no update regarding Ziana's whereabouts. Only a few days after her own rescue, Midsi volunteered to assist in the search for her, in addition to additional volunteers. Regretfully, they were unable to locate any fresh information regarding Ziana's potential location. This went on until January 2001, when a human skull was discovered close to Santa Cruz in the mountains. After forensic examination revealed it belonged to Ziana, her death was formally announced. Although Midsi was shocked by the news, she still had to face the trial, and another hurdle. April was when it started. In the same year, in front of the entire court, Midsi was required to testify and describe in great detail what Curtis had done to her. And there was him too. Yet, in spite of everything, Midsi completed her assignment. Curtis received a 251-year prison term in the end, but his journey didn't end there. He was questioned by detectives about his potential involvement in other crimes during several visits with him while he was detained. They found out that Curtis had admitted to robbing and killing 8 other girls to a fellow prisoner. The prisoner confirmed Curtis' statements verbatim and consented to assist the authorities. Curtis, though, wasn't prepared to divulge all of his secrets. He didn't refute anything, but instead attempted to bargain for different rights, interacting with investigators in code, and that he had murdered a minimum of 13 additional women and girls. He didn't fully admit to Ziana's murder until 2005, and he was given an extra 50 years in prison for it. For Midsi, the trial of Curtis wasn't the end of her troubles. Just a few weeks after her rescue, she returned to school, where she endured bullying from other children. They referred to her as the kidnapped girl and stated that she ought to have perished rather than survived, and overall behaved really improperly. As a result, her school years became a huge burden for her, and together with the trauma she had suffered, it didn't help in her healing process. Midsi also participated in the search for other missing children on multiple occasions, but the majority of the time their bodies were found at the end of the search. She experienced this tragedy as though it were her own every time, and eventually she was unable to handle the pressure any longer. Midsi found that drinking was the only way she could handle the stress, and she resorted to it more and more often as time went on. She eventually lost hope that she would ever be able to lead a normal life again. However, everything changed one day. After a friend's party, Midsi got into a nasty car accident. She was in a coma for 2 weeks after breaking her arm and neck. Doctors told her she was pregnant when she woke up and planned to have a girl. Midsi's life was completely flipped upside down by this news, yet she mustered the will to turn it around once more. She made the decision to devote all of her time to helping other kids who were victims of different crimes in addition to her daughter. She established a nonprofit organization, which is still helping those in need today. About Curtis, he passed away in 2007 due to sickness, just 6 years following their conviction. The only thing the detectives regretted was that they had failed to get him to fully confess to them about other cases in which he was suspected. The police still believe that he was involved, even though the cases are still unsolved. It's important to note that Curtis's son carried on his father's legacy. In 2019, he was found guilty of murder and served a prison sentence. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep living your best life. Goodbye.